everyone to this District 24 Legislative Candidate Forum. Quite the crowd. Appreciate you taking the time and being engaged in this process. As you know, the current Senator Mark Coulterman, is term limited out. So we appreciate the candidates being here to share their views tonight and allow all of you to hear a little bit more about their plans if they would be elected. Tonight is sponsored by the county farm bureaus in the district. So we have York, Polk, Seward, and Butler County. If we could real quick just have the board members from those counties stand so you see who has put this on tonight and sponsored this. So I am Jason Perdue, and I'm actually from York County, and I represent an at-large position on the Farm Bureau State Board. So I appreciate all of you being here again. The way it's going to work is you can ask questions. So there is Adam Peterson running around and several others. If you have a card that you've written a question down on, you can raise that. They will come and grab that. If you did not grab a blank card and you need a blank card or a pen, raise your hand. They can run those around as well. Outside of that, Jay, anything? I don't think so. Okay, I will also put a plug in for Jay. He's with the State Farm Bureau, and he's done a lot to do the video, the sound system, and help line this up, so a lot of work put in by him also. So with that, I would like to introduce our moderator this evening, and that is Susan Littlefield. She is a Butler County resident and also a farm broadcaster with Nebraska Rural Radio Network. So we appreciate her and her time tonight moderating this candidate forum. So thank you again. And Susan?
Thank you. Well, good evening to everybody, and I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to get together, especially if you were a part of the redistricting. Has anybody in here part of the redistricting, or they now find themselves in District 24 when they maybe weren't before? Just me? Man. Yeah, we were just talking about it in the back. We used to always go vote in Ulysses. I get a postcard in the mail. It says you're now voting in Rising City because you're in a new district. So for me, it's kind of exciting. I always like the opportunity to hear what the candidates have to say, because it doesn't matter what district they represent. In the end, they're representing all of us in the unicameral. We're going to have the opportunity to hear some comments to start out, some brief opening statements. That'll be 2 minutes from each candidate, and then we'll be taking questions. They'll have 90 seconds each to answer the questions, and the questions will come up here. The guys will be bringing the questions up front. Jay will pass me the questions, and then I will ask you guys the questions. To our 3 candidates, if you need more water, let me know. We will definitely make sure we keep you hydrated, because that is one of the most important things going on. Encourage everybody, if you have not registered to vote, to please do so. So with that, we are going to start out with Pat Hodovy.
Good evening, everybody. I am, in fact, Pat Hodovy, and I am from York. I'm a semi-retired family physician. I grew up on our family farm in B, was involved in the farm operation for most of my young years. I graduated from college at Midland University back in 1984. I went to medical school at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, and I got my MD degree in 1989. After that, we moved to Lincoln, and I did my residency in Lincoln in family medicine, and then after that, we've been in York pretty much the rest of the time. I'm married to my wife, Cheryl. We've been married for 34 years. I have 4 kids. I have 1 grandchild, which is always a delight, and I have 1 granddog. I have been fairly involved on multiple levels. I had the opportunity to serve 12 years on the York Schools Board of Education. I served on the Epworth Village Board for 25 years. I have been a member of the Nebraska Academy of Family Physicians Board on and off for the majority of 16 years, and I'm currently the president of that organization. I've also been pretty involved in my church. I've been the chief cook and bottle washer for our Wednesday night kids program for the last 23 years. So my areas of interest as far as issues, again, you talk to everybody, taxes is always the major issue, property taxes in particular. I would really like to see taxes go down. I think we need to do that by working on our spending. Again, I'd like to be of support to the ag community. Ag issues are very important to our state. Economic development in general, it would be a priority. Working on broadband for rural areas, again, to help with economic development and just for the people in those areas is important. And I believe in fair funding for schools, and so I think that's an important thing we do as people of our state. And so that's pretty much everything I have to tell you. Thanks.
Thank you. Now on to Jana Hughes.
Okay. It's exciting to see all the people here. I think so many more people are getting involved with what's going on, and that's really nice to see. A little bit about myself. I am from probably more this neck of the woods. I grew up on a farm near Goner. Went K through 6 at Goner Little Elementary School. There were 6 people in my class, and then went into Seward for junior high, high school, graduated Seward High. And then I told my parents I would never live in Nebraska again, and I went down to school at Texas A&M University, which is the good Texas school, not UT. It's the good one. It's the ag school. So I'm an Aggie. I got an industrial engineering degree there, and then went and worked for a engineering consulting firm out of Atlanta, and lived multiple places around the country. We lived where the projects were, so I lived in Virginia and Minneapolis, Atlanta, Memphis, to name a few. And then I married somebody named Jana Hughes, which is now my last name, and his family's owner of Hughes Brothers, and Hughes Brothers Manufacturing just celebrated their 100 year in Seward. And when I was married, we first got married, I still commuted out for the job. And then in 2000, we had our first child, and that's when I became the best job ever, which was being a mother, and chose to stay home with our kids. We have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, and I just blew in from a soccer game at Seward High right now. So if I look like Medusa, that is why. It's a little windy out. So we've got 2 kids in college and 1 still at Seward High. While I was being a mom, I volunteered a lot with 4-H, with our schools, Seward Junior Women's Club, and I'm currently on Seward Public School Board, which is kind of now why I'm here. Our superintendent called me about a year ago and said, you know, Mark Coulterman's termed out. I think you should consider running. And I said, that's hilarious. No, thank you. But it planted that seed, and it was something that stuck with me, and my husband and I talked about it, and we decided it should be people like us. My brother's 4th generation farmer of Luby Farms. John's been in the area forever, and people like that should be representing our district.
All right, thank you. Now to Joshua Ramsey.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Josh Ramsey. My family actually is not from Nebraska. I'm a pastor's kid, so that's why we moved to Nebraska about 20 years ago. I'm just going to tell you who I am right up front. I'm a Christian, I'm conservative, and I'm a small business owner. I'm a husband and a father, and that is the reason that I'm running. I'm running for Legislative District 24 as a write-in candidate because I believe Nebraska deserves leaders that represent their values. I'm passionate about being pro-life. I'm pro-Constitution. I'm pro-school choice. And I'm pro-freedom. There's been a lot of freedom that's been chipped away gradually over the last few years, and especially the last 2 years. And I'll just tell you, this all stems from my faith. I'm unapologetic about what I believe, and if you ever want to know anything about me, you can just ask me, and I'll tell you right away. So yeah, I'm not going to use up the whole time because I just I'm very to the point on a lot of things. So if you have any interest in looking at my platform, it's joshramsey.org. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Again, if you have any questions coming from the audience, just raise your hand. We'll have your note cards, or if you need a note card, the guys are in the back, and they will collect them and bring them up to the front. So our first question this evening, and we will start with Jana. The first question is, what are your thoughts on school choice and supporting non-public schools?
Okay, so school choice. I truly believe that private and public schools can coexist and definitely make a community stronger. You can see, just took a drink. You can see that in Seward and in York and all the district, in our district, there's several examples of that. Anything done here, I would also have to ensure that our public schools are not hurt with any such program. Our public schools have to educate everyone, including special needs students, and where private schools can turn away some of the more challenging. Our district has a very thriving homeschool population, and I think that is a very positive thing as well. And we need to encourage what is best for all the students, and I would consider anything that is best for all our students.
All right. Josh?
I am very, very pro school choice. Just across the board, I think we should fund parents and their children, not just school boards. I think that the money should go directly to the parents. I think they will do a better job educating their children than any school board can. I homeschool my kids, so frankly, I think I can do a lot better with the money and do it for a lot cheaper than $15,000 a year, which I think is what is currently being talked about as the budget for per student per year. So yeah, I think it's if we target it directly to the parents and the children, I think we'll have a lot better success.
All right, thank you. Josh, or excuse me, not Josh, on to Pat.
Okay, I would say that I support school choice. I, in fact, went to high school at Aquinas in David City, so I went to a private school. But while I support the ability for people to educate their kids the way they see best, I think it's important that we don't do that at the expense of our public schools. I think, again, that's needs to be our main priority. Again, I think if we take money away from public schools, it potentially leaves us in a place where we're not able to educate all our kids. So the kids in public school potentially could suffer with that. With that being said, though, I would certainly be willing to support things like tax credits and things for people who do choose to send their kids to a different school. Some of the proposals that were out there, I would say I would be in support of that potentially. So and that's all I got. Thanks.
All right, thank you. We'll move on now to our second question, and we will be starting, Josh, with you. The question is, what do you believe the balance between property, income, and sales tax should be? I'll repeat that again. What do you believe the balance between property, income, and sales tax should be?
I'm very in favor of moving it to more of a consumption and sales tax model instead of directly on your income. I think the key is more going to be in reining in spending. I don't think we're going to ever fix the problem with taxes if we're ever just going to continue to fund broken programs and I think if I can circle back just a little bit on the topic of schools, I think funding schools is important, but I think if they're not educating children properly, then I think we should move the money to parents who can do the job a lot more effectively.
Pat?
I think that the proper balance, at least at this point, would be to really work on getting our property taxes down, at least as a start, to try to equalize those three legs of that tax stool that are out there. Again, we've really gone way overboard on property tax. We unfortunately just have relied on it way too much, and we just need to change that. moving forward, we really need to have a different tax policy in our state. What we have just really doesn't work anymore. And so we need to be able to look at everything, whether it's kind of where we're working at now with sales and income and property tax in a lower version, or whether it's looking at things like consumption tax. I would be open to looking at any ideas to help bring our tax structure under better control. Again, I think failure to do so will continue to be a big problem for our state.
And Jana.
So I definitely could not say exactly what that balance should be, but right now we are definitely relying, at least for school funding, completely on the property tax, and we keep just band-aiding the issue with either, you know, lowering the amount on rural land or doing the rebate credits. And what we really need to do is fix how we fund the schools initially, and then get that more of a balance so it is a three-legged school, somewhat on income tax and somewhat on sales tax. Again, I couldn't say exactly what that, you know, is it a third, or how that would work. But definitely our state says it values education, but yet it doesn't necessarily give every student amounts of money. We have districts that receive much more state funding than others, and that needs to be fixed. And again, it's a school funding issue. But yes, our tax structure does need to be looked at, and I would definitely want to do that and dig in there if I get in.
Moving on now to question 3. And we will be starting, Pat, with you. The question is, what can be done to protect election integrity?
I think there's certainly some things that we can do to protect our election integrity. Certainly, I think the idea of an ID for voting has been tossed out there, and I think there's been a lot of support for that, and I would support that. Again, when we do so, though, we can't really violate the rights of people that want to vote but can't vote because they can't get an ID. So we'd have to make that certainly available to everybody. But I certainly would support voter ID. Again, other ideas as they come along to help secure our elections, I think would be important to evaluate as time goes on.
Jana?
Sure. So what I go back to with election integrity is the first time I went to vote, my husband and I lived in Lincoln, the first time I went to vote in Lincoln, and I went to my site, and I walked in, and they just looked up my name, Jana Hughes, it was Jana Hughes, 5306 Tudor Lane, and I got my purse out ready to show them my ID, and they're like, no, you know, just right here. You know, now when I vote in Garland, they know me by name. I walk in. I mean, if I tried to not be me, someone came in with me, these ladies would not allow it. But I am all for a voter ID. I think it needs to be free for someone if they don't have a driver's license, some sort of voter ID that is free and accessible. But I would be fully support that to make sure that our elections do have the integrity they need and not be questioned like so many are around the United States.
Josh?
First off, I'd also mention I think IDs are free if you just get a non-driver's license. If they're not, then yeah, we should move it to being free. Also, additionally, I would say there's a new amendment that one of us here would probably vote on, which is the 28th Amendment to the Constitution, which will protect elections from having foreign money spent on campaigns. So I think we should adopt that too. And I think we need to have all manual counting. I think we need to have people who will observe and watch. I think people have taken elections for granted for far too long, and if we have more community involvement in watching the elections and making sure we protect the ballot box, I think that's something everybody's going to be a lot more motivated on this year. So, and hopefully for the years to come.
Just a reminder, if you have any questions from the audience, please raise your hand or your card, and they will get picked up. Or if you'd like to ask a question as we continue on this evening, please don't hesitate. Now to question 4. Jana, we'll be starting with you on question 4. It is, What are your views on pro-life, pro-choice?
So I am pro-life. All human life is valuable and created equal. I value the life of a preborn baby to an elderly person and everyone in between, including if someone has disabilities or special needs.
Josh?
I'm absolutely pro-life. I think we should move in the legislature also to recognize personhood from conception. I think that there's a lot of good that we can do in terms of pro-life legislation. I know there was one recently passed that I think goes pretty far, but I'd like to move it even further to recognizing personhood from the moment of conception. I'm very, very pro-life. I don't know if I could say that enough. I guess additionally, I would add one more thing, and that's that we should change how we talk about being pro-life, and we should educate people on why children are a gift from God, and not just say, human life matters, but yeah, so that's my answer.
All right, thank you. And Pat?
I am pro-choice, pro-life, sorry. I was reading the question backwards, sorry. Oops. No, I am pro-life. Again, I also feel that all life is precious, from babies all the way to adults, from conception on till death. And again, it's what I live. I live that every day. I'm delivering babies for years when I was younger, all the way to taking care of people, all the way through to their very last days and providing them with compassionate care. So I think all life is precious, and I think we can't say that enough, and we can't emphasize the importance of that enough. Does a woman have a right to decide what kind of birth control she has, or what other right for conceptive things? Yeah, she probably does, but again, that never should supersede the right of that infant, the right of that unborn baby. So we can never let that take place.
Moving on now to question 5. Josh, we'll start with you. The question is, what is your position on, first, critical race theory, second, transgender sex education, K through 12, and how should the legislature address this issue?
Okay. So this one I might actually use up all the time. CRT, briefly, I would say, is Marxist theory, and I think it has no place in America. We need to reject critical race theory. Critical race theory teaches that certain people are oppressors and certain people are oppressed. And of course, American society has always agreed that everyone matters, that we should always value people equally. So any education that comes from our schools, especially public schools, I would say needs to have the understanding that all people are valuable and that we are all made in the image of God, that there is a plan for each of our lives, and that all men are brothers who have the same father. And then the sexual education stuff, I'll just briefly say, I think that's not the parent, that's the parent's job, not the school. Any sex ed needs to be done in the home, not by the school board. So.
All right, Pat?
I'm certainly not in favor of critical race theory. Again, I don't think that we should make people feel that they're inherently bad or that they're evil just because of their race. And again, I don't think we should be teaching that in our schools. With transgender sex ed, again, certainly I don't think there's any place for it in our schools as well. I think certainly There are some things that need to be taught as far as sex ed goes over time, but we don't start in kindergarten. That's something for later. But at the same token, either whether you're dealing with race or you're dealing with people with the different beliefs, we cannot agree with them, but I still think we need to show them the love of Christ. I think we need to be, we can't necessarily persecute people just for those things, but I think we have to try to do basically what Jesus would do. I think we need to try to love those people and then hopefully show them that there's a better way. Thanks.
And Jana.
Yeah, so CRT, this has no business being taught in our K through 12 schools. It is a theory, and at a college level, it can be discussed like any other theories, but it is not taught as black and white or truth. As far as the health standards in our schools, this comes back to, in addition to local control, the only standards that a public school has to adopt and should adopt are the basics: math, science, reading, and writing. Other content areas, whether it be health, PE, FCS, are recommendations, and that needs to be left at the school level. What an Omaha Public Schools need is maybe not what a Heartland Community College needs. And parents are always in control of all. So when they get to the sex standards, the letter goes home, and if a parent doesn't want their kid there, they're not there. And it doesn't get started talking about in kindergarten or first grade. It's age appropriate. As far as transgender, I think with the statement "we don't discriminate against anyone" covers all of it. And if we want to go to the transgender men competing with women, I believe in biology, and once a man has gone through puberty, they have a bigger muscular or higher muscular advantage, bigger skeletal advantage, and larger lung and heart capacity. So therefore, they should not be able to compete against women.
And I apologize if you hear buzzing. My weather alerts keep going off on my phone.
Yeah.
I keep looking down. I'm like, uh-oh. So
Where's the tornado shelter? That's the
It's
thing.
not for here, so we're okay. So I do apologize if you hear that noise. That's what's going on. Moving on to the sixth question. Pat, we'll be starting with you. Give us your thoughts about completing the Highway 81 bypass.
Well, it is about time to get it done. I'm certainly very much in favor of that. It's something that should have happened a long time ago. And unfortunately, we've let the state kind of put it off. I think it's critically important for our area. Again, it's important to have that 4-lane conduit all the way from Texas all the way into Canada. And so I certainly would support getting it done and getting it done as soon as possible.
Jana?
Okay, yes, the Highway 81 needs to be done. And if you look at a map of Nebraska and you look at communities that have grown and thrived, they are all located along infrastructure routes, whether that be along the interstate. And we're very fortunate in our district, right? We're along the interstate. So if we can get that completed, that just is more infrastructure, more room for growth to keep our communities thriving, and that's critical across the whole state, whether it be 81 or any other highway that needs to be completed.
Josh?
Yeah, I don't think I disagree at all on any of that. I think I'm very in favor of bringing more business through Nebraska, and if we can make it so that we can, I would just add, I think there's going to be a focus eventually on building businesses along those routes, and I hope it benefits a lot of the small towns around here too. So,
All right, thank you. We'll move on to our seventh question. Jana, we'll start with you, and this is a two-part question.
Goody.
How do we change our over-reliance on property taxes to fund public schools? And then what proposals would you support to change the way we fund public schools?
I love this question. Being on school board, I spent a 3-hour class trying to learn and halfway understand the TIOZA formula, if anybody has dealt into that. I think we've got an expert sitting over here on the right, or my right. So property tax. Right now, that is the only tool a community has to get additional funds. If, from whatever the state gives, that's all they've got. So if they have to hire another teacher, whatever, it goes on the back of property tax. We are, I believe, the 49th state, the second highest state in the nation that uses property taxes to fund their schools. It's broken. And the state says, oh, we value education, but they do not if they're not giving those funds per school. Every school should get some funding. So what was the second part? How would you fix it?
What proposals would you support?
Yeah. Okay. So this year, LB 890 was introduced, and it did not even come out of committee, but it started to address this. It kind of gave a little bit of foundational aid per student for all these districts. We need to get that levy tighter. Right now, we have levies anywhere from, I believe it's the low 30s to $1.05. We need to bring that down tighter, and we can do so. There were some good parts to that LB 890. I think we can tweak it and make it better, and by doing that, we can bring the reliance on property tax. Now, the money has to come from somewhere.
Your time is up.
I'm sorry. Okay, sorry.
Josh?
You got me going. It's my thing.
As far as the property taxes for school funding, I think, again, I would point out that the property taxes going up is not going to change if we don't change the spending. I think the habit has been, if we're going to raise taxes, we're going to have more money that we can spend on schooling, and frankly, I don't think that's going to fix the problem. I think the focus needs to be on what are we teaching kids, and how are we teaching them as effectively as possible. And again, I would say that a school choice model would more directly benefit parents and children, allowing them to have more bargaining power. And then as far as the property taxes, I think eventually you'll find that it goes down as you see parents being able to spend that money directly in the school district that they choose, not supporting a school district that's supporting programs and paying teachers for things they shouldn't be paid for programs that are just broken. So again, I'm very much in favor of a free market style of education.
And Pat?
Certainly, I think that we need to find some sort of a new funding formula for education. Again, we've allowed the state to put funding of education on the back of property taxes. It's been going on for a long time, and it'll continue to go on if we don't stop it. So again, I think it's critically important that we get away from the reliance on property tax. Again, as Janet said, the 890 legislation, I thought, was something that was going to at least be something that would open some discussion and get us thinking on ways that we can certainly do that. Again, I think some sort of a foundational aid to all school districts, whether you're equalized or not, is important. Again, using sales and income tax to try and fund some of that, and then to bring that reliance on property tax down. Again, I think we need to find some proposals to work on that. But again, I think looking at our government spending in general, I think we need to find a way to bring that down. Again, if we are able to get rid of things in government that we don't need or be more efficient, that certainly leaves more funding for schools that doesn't rely on property tax.
Moving on to question 8, Josh, we will start with you. What are your views on carbon pipelines? Should the legislature implement new regulations to ensure safety?
I'm sorry, what was the carbon
pipelines, and should the legislature implement new regulations to ensure safety?
No. I think those companies have plenty of regulations that they have to stick to. So no.
Pat?
Your time back.
I think that certainly, without knowing all the regulations on carbon pipelines, I think we need to make sure that they're safe for people of our state, that there's not any negative consequences to people that have pipelines like that running through their properties. I think we need to protect our landowners and our property owners in that way. But again, certainly if there are some issues, I think we certainly need to work on regulations for that. But again, if the current regulations are fine, I think we can just leave them as they are.
And Jana.
Just what he said? No, just kidding. I mean, it kind of is. I don't know exactly a whole lot about the regulations for the carbon pipelines. As long as they are safe and make sure they are safe going through our state, that is essential. I don't know if that means we need more regulations or less. Sometimes I feel like we're a little over-regulated with a lot of things. But yeah, we want it safe. And I'm going to use my time to go back to a little bit on the school thing. Because I was on school board, I did before Christmas, I visited every school in our district, and we have really good schools in District 24, something that we really should be proud of. And we have just got to make sure that those stay, if there's unnecessary spending, yes, we got to keep that in control. But we also have to keep the quality of education that we are so fortunate to have in this state. And if we haven't seen anything because of COVID, those other places that shut down schools, and we did not. We kept our kids in school, and that was really important. And that's a testament to District 24 and all the really good schools that we have, run by local school boards who are good people that do it.
Moving on now to question 9. Pat, you'll start with this one. As you only have 8 years to learn the ropes, who would you lean on as a freshman senator? And do you support term limits or increasing to 3 to 4 year terms?
Since I only have 8 years to learn the ropes, I'm going to talk to everybody. Senator Coleman, I talk a lot with former Senator Greg Adams, Senator Stewart. Those people have a wealth of information that can really be helpful. Certainly, even people like lobbyists can sometimes be helpful. Again, you got to understand who they are and what they are doing, but they do provide some useful information. Learning from people in the Capitol that are there much longer than we are, I think is important. And relying on all you. Again, your opinions are important. So again, I would want to know what the people are thinking. Again, my job's to represent you. And so I certainly think that's an important group to lean on, whether you're individuals or with other organizations. I think your opinions are very important. As far as term limits, I am in favor of term limits. Do we have some issues because we only have 8-year terms? At times, it really does make it a little bit different for us. I think certainly I might be in support of a 12-year or 3-term limit. We lose a lot of the institutional knowledge of the legislature, and so we spend a lot of time spinning our wheels, going back over things that were done before. So again, I think I might favor that just so that we have more cohesiveness and more knowledge within the body.
Jana?
Right. I have said from the beginning, it's all about developing relationships. And I said it's relationships within District 24, whether that be, like I said, I've tried to reach out to the different school districts. I've been to the local commissioners meeting. I'm trying to get to the Rotaries, and I've talked to the economic development people. Just try to develop those relationships, because I don't claim to know everything. I will not know everything. So when something comes across my desk, I have a relationship made in this district. I can say something affects optometrists. I can talk to one of the eye doctors and say, how does this affect you? How does this affect your business? On the flip side, you're going to have to develop relationships when you get there. And I am one of 49 votes. And I've got to have a relationship with those 48 so that we can work together to make good legislation. Just some of the current people I would talk to and rely on would be some of the other rural senators around our area, just because they have the same type of district, the same type of people that live there, and so can rely on that. And then as far as the term limit question, I think there is, with just the 2 terms, the 8 years, it sounds like you just finally get in the groove of things. Now you're campaigning again, you get in, and then you're gone. I think I would support a 3-term, 12-year limit for that.
And Josh?
I would say definitely Senator Coulterman would be my first call, and I would ask him, who do you talk to in your day-to-day? Who are you hearing from? And then, maybe who doesn't feel like they've been heard. recently. And then I guess down the line, just making sure, like Jana said, that we have relationships in the community. I'm not a farmer, so I cannot tell you that I would know the first thing about farming, and but I know of a whole slew of gentlemen who I would ask their opinions on whatever legislation came across my desk at the Capitol building for, how can I get out of your way? What do you need from me? And then I'm in favor of more representation. So if it means that more terms increase the representation, that's great. But I think that people should have the right to vote every few years on who's representing them to make sure that they're doing the right job.
All right, move on to question 10. Jana, we'll start with you. Where do you stand on unfunded mandates and your stance on the current bill in the legislature that addresses mandates?
Yeah, so being on school board, I've seen a fair share of these. Right, so you get a bill come across and, you need to do this, whatever municipality is, whether it be a school or a city or whatever, you have to do this. Oh, and it costs that much money. Too bad. I don't know where you're going to get that money from, maybe on the property taxes of the people that in your community. So I would be, I'm watching that bill actually for the unfunded mandates. I sent an email to our Senator Colderman saying that I would support that. Now being on the flip side, I listened to some of the legislation the morning they discussed that, and there was questions of like, oh, well then this, let's say they make a mandate and then the school says, well, that cost us this much money, here's the bill to the state, and then the state gets all these bills and have to pay it. There's going to have to be some rules in place of what that actually looks like, but I do not have a problem with having legislation be mandated without funds behind it. And I'm going to go back to the question before on the terms. I should have said this. I think a longer term limit of that 3 terms, 12 years, is good because I think right now, honestly, our institutional knowledge is held by all the lobbyists, and that is not the greatest place for it to be. It would be better with some of our legislatures, and that's why I think that it probably does need to be moved to that 12-year. Okay.
All right, Josh, for you.
I'm against mandates kind of in general. So I think if there's a reason for a mandate, there shouldn't be any top-down enforcement of it. It should be left to the people to decide. So I guess I won't vote for a mandate, period. So that's my answer.
All right. Pat?
I want to make it a clean sweep. I hate unfunded mandates. They basically impact almost every segment of our lives, and I certainly don't support them, and I think if we can avoid creating them, that's probably the best way to do it. If you can't do that, then again, making sure that you hold harmless those people that have to deal with those mandates, I think is a fair way to deal it. Thanks.
Moving on now to question 11. Josh, this will be starting with you. Serving in the legislature is a full-time job. Will you be able to commit the time necessary to effectively represent the citizens of the 24th Legislative District?
Yeah, and I would look forward to making sure to travel around, especially with my emphasis on school choice. I want to spend a lot of time in local parochial schools, asking people what they need. And again, I'm a small business owner, so I absolutely will be happy to schedule around what I need to do to hear from people, to be at the Capitol, to make sure I'm representing people, not myself in the legislature. so yeah, I would look forward to traveling around the district. I haven't really been up to Polk County as much as I would like to say I have, but maybe a handful of times in my life. But I love York and Seward County, so I'd happily drive all across 34 and those counties to talk to people, to see what they think, see what they need, and build those relationships. So,
Pat?
Certainly the legislature is a full-time job. It's not just those 60 or 90 days in session. There's a lot of time spent working on issues, again, meeting with the people of the district, and that's incredibly important. To that point, I am working myself out of employment, and if I'm elected, then by the time I would take office, I would probably be unemployed by that time, and so that would be a good thing. And I really think it's so important that you devote all your time to being in the legislature. I think there's a lot of people there now that have to work and have to have some sort of employment to support their families. But I would certainly try not to do that. I would certainly try to spend as much time as I can, because again, it takes time to get out and meet people, go to gatherings, listen to what people have to say, and that's got to be done some during the session, but again, a lot of that work needs to be foundational for the next session during the time in between sessions.
And Jana?
So clearly we are all doing this for the pay because it's amazing. And as far as full-time job, I feel like I'm already putting in a full-time job for this, just trying to get out and meet people and do meet and greets. And like I was saying, develop those relationships ahead of time so that once that session's in play, I've got those already developed. But yes, I am going to commit the time. This kind of fell into, it was good timing. I've only got one kid at home. You're always a mom, but my two older ones are out of the nest and seem to be doing okay so far. In fact, one's has a job and will be off our payroll in June, so that's amazing. So I was ready. I was kind of ready for what's next. And I am willing to take this on as a full-time job. It already is, and I'm not making that amazing paycheck yet. So I am all in. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Next question. Do you guys need to stand up, stretch your legs?
Can we take a little stretcher? Is that okay? Or do we? It's up to you. Let's do jumping jacks or something.
We can take 5 minutes. Give you guys a chance in the audience to stretch too.
Whoever does the most burpees.
Yes, there are cookies, there's coffee, and there's, again, just a reminder, if you have any questions you would like asked, raise your hand if you don't have a card. And then once you have your question filled out, raise your hand again, and they will be picking them up. For the folks in the first couple of rows, they've turned the AC on. So I noticed there were some people that were starting to get a little uncomfortable, hence another reason why we took a break, just to give folks a chance to get some fresh air. So they do have all the doors open, and I can tell you, there's a beautiful cool breeze right now. So, all right, we are ready to get back started so we can keep on time. This will be question 12. Pat, we'll be starting with you. Would you support the unicameral ceasing its nonpartisan status and going to a system with party leaders, whips, etc.?
I kind of feel that one of the great features of the legislature that it's nonpartisan. Even with it being nonpartisan, it's still partisan enough. I think that if we went to a two-party system and had a hierarchy of leadership like they do in Congress, I think we'd probably get the same result. I think we'd have we get a lot less done. I think certainly when we're nonpartisan, even when we do have a party affiliation, I think it kind of maybe helps to foster a certain amount of cooperation amongst in the body. So I would be against going to a partisan legislature.
Jana?
So that the unicameral being nonpartisan and making it partisan, I really haven't, I guess, given a lot of time or thought to. I would just need to hear the reasoning for or against. I think our unicameral system is rather unique, and I think it can work, and I think it's about developing relationships with all the senators. I think there's a bigger maybe gap between rural and urban a little bit in there, and I guess I don't know, by making it partisan, I don't know if that would really gain or negate a lot. So I guess I don't have much thought on it either way. Maybe leave it the way it is.
All right. Josh?
I actually think it's already partisan, so I think just making it partisan is just going to recognize what it already is. I think the system we have is unique, and I think it's a good way to do things. But I think the issue some people have is that if you run as a representative, you don't really have a platform that is reined in by a party. So I think that the partisan label would sort of rein people in a little bit. And you could argue that that's good or bad. I think it's probably just going to move that way more and more as you get, representation from, Lincoln and Omaha that are moving more and more in that direction. So I don't see a problem with making it partisan because I think that's already the case. So that's my answer.
All right. Moving on to question 13. Jana, we will start with you. How would you encourage young people to stay and invest in rural Nebraska?
So remember, I'm the one that said I would never live in Nebraska again. So I think I can maybe answer this one a little bit. I think the important thing is we've got to make Nebraska's a unique state. Look what we've done the last 2 years. I wouldn't have wanted to live anywhere else in the United States during this, and we've got to promote that fact. What makes Nebraska unique is our people, and we've got to keep that in mind. And I think it starts, honestly, at the schools. I think to try to keep kids staying in Nebraska as you start developing apprenticeships, even in the high schools with our communities. A lot of kids don't need to go on to a 2 or 4 year school after college or after high school. So develop those apprenticeships so that they maybe have job opportunities when they graduate. You can also do it with more at our state colleges, through the university systems, and through our community colleges. And then we've got to make our rural areas attractive to people to stay. And that means we've got to have broadband access, and we've got to have amenities in these towns. We've got to grow these towns, that it is a good place to live and raise a family. And I would not have wanted to have a family anywhere else but here.
Thank you. Josh?
I think one thing that makes Nebraska different, especially rural Nebraska, is the morality. So that would be I think the main benefit to reemphasizing what we are about here. And then as far as trade schools, I think trade schools are awesome. I think community colleges are awesome. I have a master's degree, and I currently own a business as a handyman. So I think teaching children, especially, how to do something with their hands, to build something, to give back to their community. I don't think there's a better thing to teach them other than the that moral core that I think we need to revitalize. So I guess the other main point I would make is if we make communities more attractive to young people, especially those who are just getting married, just having families. I think, having been one just recently, I think that's going to come from recognizing parents and their role in their children's lives, and not trying to replace that with some sort of artificial standard like a school.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Pat?
I guess to encourage our young to stay in the state in rural Nebraska, I think we have to provide them the substrate, the things that they need to be able to stay here. Again, as the other said, we need to develop jobs for them, good paying jobs. Again, whether it's for people that go to college or people that choose not to go to college, trying to provide them a good job, I think goes a long way to enticing people to stay within the state. Again, for a lot of people, it's all about quality of life. Again, they want the amenities, and so broadband becomes important for people, becomes important for businesses coming in to spur economic development and keep those people in our state. But when it comes down to it, we just need to remind them of the quality of life and our values. Over the years, I had a lot of people in my medical school class that went out and went other places. Over time, they all come back. And there's a reason they all come back, because Nebraska is a great place to live. It's a great state. We have great values, and we take care of each other. And so it's a great place to raise your family. And so I think that is the biggest thing that we can do to remind our kids that they should stay within the state.
Now for question 14. This is a multi-part question. Where do you stand on the consumption tax, Blueprint Nebraska proposal, and property taxes on tangible assets with overall tax reform? Josh, we'll start with you.
As far as the consumption tax, I'm very in favor of it. I think I already said that, but the consumption tax, I think, will help reduce the other property tax, income tax, and the one issue I have with it is I want to make sure that we rein in the spending, because if we don't fix the spending, then adding a new tax is just going to be an incentive to collect more taxes. My issue with the consumption tax would only be that it has to replace, not simply be an alternative.
Pat?
Could you repeat that second point?
Yes, excuse me. Blueprint Nebraska proposal, property tax on tangible assets, and overall tax reform.
When it comes to tax policy, I'm at the point where I'm willing to listen to anything and everything. Again, each plan has their pros and cons, and I just think that we need to be able to look at them all. Is it one particular tax plan that's going to be successful? Is it going to be a consumption tax? I certainly think that's a reasonable thing to look at. Is it, the Blueprint Nebraska I thought was kind of a good place to start. Again, property tax on tangible assets, anything. I'm willing to look at anything and everything. And again, we need to just take a careful look at it. We need to try to build as much consensus as we can, because right now we can't build consensus to get anything moved in the legislature. So it just kind of needs to be done on a larger basis and get people interested and get it figured out and move forward with something.
Jana?
So in specific, I guess, about the EPIC or the consumption tax, I think it's a very radical idea. It's not done anywhere else in the United States. It's something to consider. I would definitely, of course, look at anything as well. Concerns I have would be, okay, so all that money goes to a pot in Lincoln. How does that come back to our district? There's no local say, there's no, I would be, all your schools, you get 80% of your funding, now what? Oh, okay, I guess what do you do with that? Or the city, you only get 80%. Does the city then get their sales tax on top of it? There's just so many questions with it that I would be concerned about. But again, yeah, I think it's willing, we need to look at everything. We need to look at other states, what they do and what they're successful at as well.
Question 15. Pat, to start with you. What is your view on spending caps being placed on school districts?
As far as spending caps on school districts, we certainly have a funding cap right now. It's the $5 levy. I think you have to be careful with that a little bit. Schools need stable funding. Schools are like everybody else. The amount of gas you put in your bus, the cost of that goes up. The cost for natural gas goes up. Electricity, all those things go up whether you want them to or not, or whether or not you're able to increase your spending. Teachers expect a pay raise once in a while, and they probably definitely deserve that, you know? So it's really hard to completely support caps on school districts. Again, school districts need to be mindful of where they're getting their money and where it comes from, and they need to be as economical as they possibly can. But again, I'm not sure that new caps on education are something that I would support at this time.
Jana?
I'm going to reiterate a lot that Doc says as well. We already do have caps on our school funding, but I would also go to our schools have a locally elected school board, and that is one of their tasks, right, is to represent that district and to be mindful of the budget that is in place. And the community, it's open meetings, they should come and share their thoughts. But that's kind of what your local school board does. So I'm not exactly sure why the legislature always feels like they have to put the caps on when you've also got this local control board that's, you know, supposed to be over that school district. And the caps in place, we already have. And I'm with Dr. Hodavi. One of the things that concerns me, honestly, for this next year is look at our inflation. And, you know, are we going to have to bump up our teachers' salaries at that inflation? I don't know. I'm just saying. But it worries me. And when they can leave their teaching profession and go get another job that pays a lot more, and now we're losing teachers, there's a worry there. And so it's got to be a balance. But I believe fully in local control, and I think that is what we have. So let's use it and support it.
Josh?
I think I'm probably the most different on this topic, but I think if we move to a school choice model, you're not going to have to put funding caps, because the parents are going to be the ones deciding where they want to send their kids. They're going to say, I want to send my kids to a parochial school, and that's going to be the one that best suits them. Or they're going to send them to if say they don't have parents, or say they are a single parent family. You could definitely make the argument that those kids will be better served by a parent-student-based model. So, again, yeah, inflation is definitely a problem, and I think the legislator putting an artificial cap on something is not going to fix it. What will fix it is more focus on what the schools are there to do.
All right, moving on to question 16. Jana? How, if at all, should the issue of nitrates in our drinking water be addressed?
I have not been asked that question, and I've done a lot of the meet and greets. I probably just don't even know how to answer it. I know Seward itself had a problem, and they had to put a water treatment plant in to address it, or they gave out bottled water. So we just need to make sure our drinking water is good and safe for all people. And I guess what you have to do to make it safe is what has to be done.
Josh?
Yeah, I think we're all going to agree that drinking water needs to be safe. So I don't see any way around making sure that we have good filtration, whether that gets taken care of as a legislative issue or more of a city by city issue, because it'll be more of a based on your location type of thing. I think you could probably have Seward and Utica being completely different in terms of what the water content is. So I think that should be studied for sure. I guess I haven't really thought about that very much. So,
All right. Pat?
I think it's already being addressed. I think our ag producers have been responsible, and they have been working on their nitrogen use. There's newer farming practices, different ways to do things, and from what I see, I think that's going to be what's going to take care of it. And I think we may need some treatment from town to town and from well to well, but I think the biggest thing that influences some of those things are being dealt with by the people that are closest to it, the ag producers. And again, they've been doing an excellent job, and I would just encourage them to continue.
And our final question before the lightning round.
Oh, we have a lightning round?
Yeah, you were warned.
Is that okay?
Josh, we'll start with you. Would you support expanding the brand territory to encompass the entire state?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Would you support expanding the brand territory to encompass the entire state?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The farther west you go in the state, the cattle have to be branded.
Oh, okay. Oh, geez, I have absolutely no idea. I suppose, I don't know, I would ask a rancher. That would be my answer.
Okay. Pat?
Certainly, branding is a very important process in the ranch, in ranching, and again, that's how you know where your cattle are and who they are, and that's how you know you're getting what you're getting when you're buying cattle, and so it's really important. And so, in theory, it would seem to make sense that you could expand it across the entire state. But my question is, how does it affect small producers? So people that have 25, 30 head. Is it practical for them to do branding and to go to all that? It might well be. Again, I would probably not say I'm an expert, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I would have to ask the experts and see what they think.
And Jana.
So the limited knowledge I have on this too is just from a couple of relationships that I've developed with some cattlemen, and I would believe that they would say no. So it is necessary, and I know out west, but we're in a little bit different locale, and I would say no at this time. I would definitely research it a little more too. But
All right, now for the lightning round. It's 1 minute. You can either answer yes or no. If you feel the need to expand upon your yes or no, you have exactly 1 minute to do it. If not, yes or no, and we move on to the next one. Pat, we'll start with you. If you are elected, what is the first thing you will do to help, except this is not a yes or no?
Yes, definitely.
Hey, we're amongst a bunch of politicians. Now, if you are elected, what's the first thing you would do to help Nebraska farmers and ranchers besides property tax reform? So in 1 minute, what would you do?
I think we need to work on expanding our markets, making sure that we have good markets so we can support our prices on the commodities that we sell, and I think that's probably would be an important thing to do.
All right. Josh? I messed it up. I'm seeing if you're paying attention.
First thing in the legislature would probably be to refocus on individual liberties and make sure that we don't have any more issues with school boards or government overreach in terms of telling people how they should and should not live.
Jana.
okay, so the first thing I would do to help the farmers and ranchers, whatever, is our unemployment in Nebraska is like 2% or less, and I would do what I could do to try to help with the workforce. We do not have enough people to work anywhere, and I know that's a huge concern for the people that I know in our area.
Now for the yes or no questions.
Okay.
Jana, we're going to start with you.
Great.
Mask mandate.
No.
Josh?
No.
Pat?
No.
Josh, medical marijuana.
No.
Pat?
No.
And Jana.
No, unless it could be distributed through a real pharmacy.
So we'll switch that to recreational marijuana. Pat?
It'd be funny if we all said yes.
Well, let me think about it.
Medicine, but you just want to go smoke a joint? Absolutely.
No, definitely no.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Jana?
No.
And Josh.
No.
Moving on, Second Amendment. Jana.
Oh. We absolutely have the right to bear arms. Yes.
Josh?
Yep. Let's get the constitutional carry.
And Pat.
Yes, supportive of the amendment.
Fifth of 6 questions. Helmet law. Josh. Do. It just says helmet law. So are you for it or are you against it?
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay. Pat?
I'm in favor of keeping it. Again, I see the consequences of people that have not worn their helmets, and it not only is bad for the patient, it's bad for families, and it's bad for communities. So as much as I hate to impose on somebody's rights, I think the greater benefit to society says keep it.
And Jana?
So is the guy here that came to my York meeting? Yes, he is. He came in, and he was the first guy in the door, and he walks right up to me, and he goes, helmet law, if it came across your desk to repeal, would you say yes or no? And I said, I've never thought about that before. And I'd have to think about it. And I said, my nursing friend would say, well, you should wear it so that you don't have to scrape your brains off the pavement when you have a crash. And then I also answered, I'd have to really research it, and I would look at the 10 years before the helmet law went into play and the 10 years after and kind of look at those numbers to decide.
And the last one. Death penalty. Pat?
I am against it because it is proven to be an ineffective deterrent, and if you're really pro-life, that would be counterintuitive to being pro-life.
Jana?
I'm like scattered squirrel. Death penalty? Is
Death
that what you
penalty,
said?
correct.
Okay. Death penalty. I am against for 2 reasons. I'm fiscally conservative, and it costs almost more than $1 million for someone to be on death row than to be life in prison. I am not easy on crime, but I think that that fiscally makes sense. And 2, there is a percent that someone is on that that is innocent, that is on there, and I just think instead of putting somebody to death that might be innocent, it wouldn't be right. So life imprisonment instead.
And Josh?
I'm in favor. I'm pro-life, but somebody who deserves a death penalty deserves it because they are not pro-life, because they've taken a life. So I'm in favor of it. I think it needs to be the strictest standard. I think there's not just legal standard for it, but yeah, I'm in favor of it.
We've come to the time in the evening where we get to let the candidates give us their final thoughts. They'll have 3 minutes to give a closing statement, and we will be starting with Jana.
So again, thanks for coming. This has been fun. I've sweated through my shirt, I think. Anyway, this is something new for me. So, in 50 years, I've never done something like this before. Maybe there'll be more. I don't know. So what I want to say, I will work hard. I am a Christian. I bring strong values. I'm a mother. I bring that lens to the legislature. But I'm also very practical with my engineering degree. I really like to research and think about things and get all sides of the issue. Nothing's black and white. There's lots of shades of gray. But I want to research those. I want to have those relationships built on the district side so that I can represent our district. That is why I would be elected in this position. It's not for me to be, the glory, the fame, the huge paycheck. It is to represent our people, and that is what I would intend to do. When you think of the word Nebraskan, there are three things that come to mind for me. A very strong work ethic. If you go to any other state and they know you're from Nebraska or even maybe the Midwest, they want to hire you. And why is that? Because we have a very, very strong work ethic. We also bring strong Christian values to the play. That's our lens. I was sitting at lunch the other day. I have one liberal friend. She lives in Lincoln. And we were having this discussion about the separation of church and state. And I would argue that you cannot separate it, because if you are a Christian, it's how you decide everything. It's the values that you balance, any decisions made. So how do you pull that aside to make a decision? And so you would bring that to the legislature. So Nebraskans, a strong work ethic, strong values, Christian values, family values. And guess what? We care about our neighbors, right? That is one thing that I think is prevalent through everything is we take care of our people. Look at any small town, something happens to a family, we rally, we take care of. And we need to reflect that in our laws. We need to uphold our Constitution. We are strong people. We don't need government overreach. Government has a place, but we need local control, because that's where the best decisions are made. We take care of ourselves. And I intend to take that to the legislature and fight for that every step of the way. So I would appreciate any support.
Josh.
I guess I'll probably make the shortest closing, but I'll tell you again, much like Jana just said, I'm a Christian. That informs everything I do. I do believe that there's a separation of church and state, but it's one directional. We have rights, we have liberties, and the government is not doing its job in terms of recognizing those liberties. Again, my biggest issues are not going to be just about property taxes or broadband or cutting spending. Those are very important issues. I'm very much more focused on taking care of those things after we fix the internal problems that we have. And that's the problems we have in terms of our morality, in terms of recognizing people's rights, in terms of stopping government overreach. I'm very in favor of school choice again. I think we have fantastic schools for the most part, but I think, again, parents and children should be the focus of our education model. I'll close again saying thank you very much for coming, everyone, and I would appreciate your support. Again, my platform and everything I stand for is at joshuaramsey.org, and I'd welcome any feedback or any interaction we could have. Thank you.
And Pat.
So I guess I'd just like to start out by thanking the Farm Bureau for sponsoring this tonight. It's been a really good event, and I really appreciate them doing that. And I'd like to thank all of you for attending. It's really important that you were here, and it means a lot that you care enough about the process to come out tonight. People ask me, why are you running for legislature? And the second question right after that, are you out of your mind? And I would say no, my mother had me tested, so. So for me, it comes down to one thing. It comes down to service. Throughout my whole life, I've kind of been hardwired to service. Everything I do goes along those lines of service. Again, I've been service to my patients for 30 years, taking care of them. These people have become my family. They're not just patients. I've been able to build those relationships. And so service is very important to me. And I guess I just really want to humbly serve the people of the 24th District. Again, it's important. Partly because I think there's a lot of people that are disenfranchised out there. I think there's a lot of people that feel that what they think doesn't count. Their opinions really don't matter. And it's something that we really have to change. We have to get those people back into the process. Everybody's opinion is important. If you don't have everybody's opinion and you don't see all sides in an issue, you're going to end up not having the full picture. You're going to make bad policy and you're going to make bad laws. And again, that's something we need to avoid in the legislature. I will do everything in my power to be open. I will be out and about. I will meet with groups. I'll meet with individuals. As often as people want to meet, I'll try to be out there for them. And I'm very serious about that. Again, I think for me, it comes down to service and making sure that everybody feels represented. And again, I thank you all for attending tonight.
Let's give them all a round of applause. With that, we got through 18 questions plus the lightning round. Unfortunately, we had a huge stack that didn't get asked. So if you have questions that you have burning, wanting to know answers, please stick around and talk to our three candidates, get the answers that you need, and of course, encourage you to make sure that you get out and vote. Drive home safe, and thanks for coming tonight.